this thing ends. No, I think they're just to have their shields up and just kind of using that for a position of advantage, a position to be able to look in. I highly, what? And I highly doubt that they're going to try to take him out. Colton just said that it looked like they may have had a spike strip with them. So you see the officer there with a shield. Maybe their idea is they're going to try to slide up on the side of this vehicle and throw a spike strip under a tire. But yeah, that's it's the call of that supervisor down here. If they can sneak up on him enough to where they can get that spike, throw that spike strip underneath the car to take out the two rear tires should he move. That might be a plan, but it's a risky plan. But that's the one. Yep. Oh yeah, I would think so. I mean, they like I said, they do have a lot more information than we do. They maybe even, like I said, on the phone with him, so they know what's going on. They may have him already identified. For all we know, he could be a employee of the metro, or he could just be a person that got in the yard and got in a car. But yeah, that's a pretty risky move getting out there. But you know what? It's risk versus reward. You take a necessary risk to get the reward of what you want. That reward would be getting that spike strip to be able to disable a tire should he drive away, and try to keep it from getting to a high speed and hitting somebody in an intersection. So that's when you have to, as a supervisor, has to take that in mind. What do I put my officers in harm's way to do what, and what would be the reward for doing that? So I personally would love to get this car disabled somehow. Bringing a black and white in front of him is pretty much out of the question because they're not armored. You can get an officer hurt doing that. You can start ramming them, and that escalates the situation. I mean, right now he's content just to sit here in the driveway. Let him do that for a while until you can get more equipment down here and come up with a different game plan. But those shields out with the spike strips, that look like that's just one tool in the toolbox that you use here. So it's teamwork, tools, and tactics would bring these pursuits to an end. And that's what the LAPD trains for, and that's what they're going to do. Most agencies handle it that way, to where they try not to escalate but de-escalate a situation like this. Right, I heard it mentioned that when we were on that pursuit in Bray at about 9 o'clock, just before the 10 o'clock program started. They were talking about it, and it was kind of just general information. And then, like I said, once we got back to base, we started hearing LAPD talk about it, and then an air unit say they had the vehicle and they were following it, and it came to a stop, like I said, in Silver Lake. So, yeah, they've been looking for it, and what type of system it has on it, that it can be tracked. A lot of these government vehicles have GPS locators on them, so where their dispatch can keep track of them, they know where they're at, but sometimes they're not updated all the time, so you might get an update every 2 or 3 minutes, and that's real hard to do when you're following a car or trying to find a car. When you're 2 to 3 minutes behind it, it's tough because you're trying to catch up to it, and they'll give you an intersection. The next thing you know, he's another mile, 2 miles ahead of you. So they were working and had air units up looking for it, and finally they were able to find it at LAPD. I'm, I'm, I'm getting informed by the air traffic control. I got to move out of the way for a jet coming into Burbank here. So let me do some flying here. Mike and Cher, let me send it back down to you. Looks like they're approaching. Yeah, it's kind of hard to figure out here. I got a good reflection off of a light, actually a street light there, and they're walking up and looking in. Uh, yeah, yeah. I think they're just trying to gain intel, and they're one officer's really close. You see him come away. Yeah, they put the spike strip underneath the rear tires, so those officers backed away. So what you had is two teams of officers come in. One come in really on a diagonal to get that spike strip in, and then the other ones went way up and got his attention to keep an eye on him and get lights in his eyes so he couldn't see through that rear view mirror. And got those spike strips down there. Now the vehicle is somewhat detained or contained, and so now it's just a matter if this guy decides to drive off, then they'll take out those tires and then limit that vehicle's ability to go too far or too fast once he starts getting the flat tires. And then we've seen it before where the rubber comes off after a time, and the next thing you know, he's throwing sparks and losing traction and goes from there. So yeah, it's a good thing got those spike strips on those rear tires. Be able to get, as we get back in closer, we're kind of moving back in now. We'll see if we see a spike strip under that left rear tire. Let me slide Sky 5 over and shoot the gap here. Yeah, you got lights on. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's all the way under. Yeah, those things are really long. They threw it completely underneath, and it's on both rear tires. So there you go. That's a... Oh, absolutely. Good. Yeah, the only time I've ever seen that is when they have cars around it and they're able to hide behind cars and kind of sneak up on them. Not in wide open situation like this where you got a driver in a vehicle with it more than likely and dry, foot on the brake, able to take off at a moment's notice and to slide up like that. But they, they worked on that. They thought about it. They kind of talked it over and then finally came up with that plan that you have the two teams coming up, and, it worked. And so that's a good thing. The worst that could have happened there is the guy drove away, or started shooting out the windows. But you see these officers, they're not turning their back on the cars, they're backing away. You see as they're walking, they're always watching. So they're going to get over here, and what they're doing now, they're just trying to get intel, see what's going on in there, and kind of keeping an eye the inside just to get a look at it. I am highly surprised they haven't blown out the back windows with a... There you go. See, that's what I was wondering why it hadn't happened yet. And so, yeah, took probably a 40 millimeter round, which is a large rubber round, to shoot the window. Up there he goes, drives away over the spike strips. Off he goes, and that spike strip was successful on those rear tires. Off he goes, and there's a police car down the street here. Let's see if he gets by him. And so, boom, there he goes through there, and now continuing here northbound Coldwater away from Van Owen, and at a very high rate of speed as we work our way northbound here. And as we come up the next intersection, through that on a green, and luckily this time of night, not a lot of traffic out here. Coming up on a red light, next intersection here as we come up, and cars are pulling up to the intersection. Cars starting to come through, and there, right through the middle of that intersection, threading the needle right through. And now continuing on, working our way northbound here on Coldwater, and this will continue on up towards the Arleta area as we come up here. We're coming up on a big left-hand jog as we work our way through an intersection here. Through on the green, and going to start seeing smoke here in a bit as those back tires start going off, because I guarantee you those spike strip got both rear tires, and he's kind of going around this corner. You see a little bit of a wiggle of the tail, and he's on the brakes, making that right turn. And as he makes that right turn here, coming back eastbound, this will take him back towards the 170 freeway. We're on Santa Coy now, going eastbound, working our way back towards that 170. There is I don't believe there is an on-ramp to the 170 from Sanacoy, but he's now made a little transition here, working our way back towards. You're coming up next intersection. Through that intersection, luckily people stop as we work our way along, coming up to the 170. You'll go underneath that, and he's getting on the brakes here. Let's see what he does. He's kind of slowing down. Units are in behind him, and as he's making a turn here, looks like he might be going into another parking lot. I'm going to slide Sky 5 around over here. 5's going around to the north. And as we work our way through here, get it to where we can see him again, as we hands out the door. Hey, he's standing, his hands in the air, and took the car tires out. He realized he couldn't get away, and now it looks like he's given up. Hands up, following the officer's orders. They have him step away from the car and get him out towards that sidewalk, and then have him start walking backwards towards them. You can see the officers just holding back, and here he is walking back. Let me slide a little further north here. 5's going a little further north. And he's on the ground now, kneeling down. And so it looks like this is going to come to an end here peacefully. Luckily, nobody was hit during that last little run. But the officers very bravely got up there, got the spike strips in to disable the vehicle. And after he took off, it just came to an end very quickly here. So keep an eye on these officers. Yeah, well, yeah, they're gonna wait a bit here, get some more officers here, because you want officers to be able to clear that vehicle, and then officers take care of the suspect. So they've got 2 units here right now. Additional units are coming in behind, and once they get enough team members here, then they'll put those 2 teams together and make their approach. But right now the suspect looks like he's complying with the officers, and this should be coming to a peaceful end. Yeah, there's the officer. Right, you already had the 4 officers go up and clear the vehicle. They're still providing cover, and now you'll get 4 officers to make the approach. You see the sergeant bringing everybody in line, getting them in line, telling them what they need to do. The 4 officers are determining who will make contact, who will be the cover officers. 1 officer will go down and take care of the hands. 1 officer will take care of the legs. So they've discussed that right now to make sure they know who has what job, and then now they see the suspect's going to roll and looking back at him. So here comes the approach. 1 officer will keep him covered, and you never give up.